Thanks for joining us for another edition of The Small Business Show with Jim Fitzpatrick, exclusively on ASBN.com.
Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. You're watching another edition of The Small Business Show, exclusively right here at ASBN.com and now streaming on Roku, Fire TV, and Apple TV. Adapting to consumer preferences is a strategy to ensure ongoing financial success in your business. Joining us now is international keynote speaker, business futurist, CEO, and founder of GDR Creative Intelligence is Kate Ancketill. So Kate's company, GDR, is the innovation partner to some of the world's largest consumer brands, including Coca-Cola, Google, and Lego. Thanks so much, Kate, for joining us on today's show. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure. Love to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Sure. So for those that might be not as familiar with you as we are here at the show, tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am a business futurist. It's what used to be called a trend forecaster back in the day. It's evolved, as has everything else. And our focus is on, obviously, commerce, people buying and selling things in public, things which are legal anyway, but with a retail focus. So retail brands and experiences. So we're based in London, but our scope is entirely global. And actually about half of our clients have always been in the US, in fact. So a very international perspective. And I think people like the fact that we're in Europe. We do have, I think, a sort of a wider perspective, I think, sometimes than other small boutique consultancies in our industry.
Mm-hmm. As a futurist, how do you define business futurism?
Well, you can sort of, say it's about 20 or even 50 years into the future. We don't. We don't really believe in more than about 5 to 7 years future. We just think it's kind of making it up, to be honest, beyond that. The world is changing so fast these days that really, people are having you on if they're saying that they can tell you what's going to happen in 20 years.
Yeah.
So we say it's near-term future. And obviously we're looking at what's happening now and at the cutting edge and new technologies and the big meta forces that are kind of impacting the world, the planet, the economy, societies, cultural change, the self, the sense of self, and all of those kind of big meta forces. And then we have a look at what we see as the trends, which are the reactions to those meta forces.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And what strategies can entrepreneurs use to gather data on changing consumer preferences?
Well, there is an enormous amount of information that's actually very high quality, which is free. There are amazingly good newsletters from people in our industry that they're, if you just sign up to a load of those, read judiciously, lots of seriously good intelligence out there. Perhaps subscribe to a trend service that is for your industry, read widely, go to conferences. You can pick up masses without spending very much money at all, if any. And of course, be aware of your target audience and where they're hanging out. What social media are they into? You need to be all over that like a rash.
Yeah, this is so vitally important for entrepreneurs and business owners today, isn't it? To try to figure out where the market is headed so that you don't make a major mistake, right?
Exactly. I mean, there are sort of major trend trajectories which are pretty kind of robust and reliable, that you're not really making it up. I mean, there's no question that everybody's moving towards a more sustainable and regenerative process and supply chain and, products and product life cycle. And there's no question that consumers are interested in, saving money. There is a cost of living crisis out there. And that coincides well with actually saving the planet, because everybody wants things to be more long lasting. They perhaps are interested in fewer things, but better things. And they're interested in ways that they can sell those things secondhand easily once they're done with them, and then enter them into a sort of secondary circle of life and end of life. All of those are issues which are absolutely at the front of consumers' minds, and they save them money, and they save the planet.
Yep, there you go. It's a win-win-win. Now, we've seen big companies, in fact, if you look at the auto industry, for instance, they predicted that everybody's going to want to buy an EV. So therefore, they went out and built a whole bunch of EVs and committed billions of dollars in R&D and built these products and shipped them to their dealerships. And lo and behold, they found out that guess what? There's not enough consumers that want these EVs right now. The time may come, but they misread, I think, the tea leaves, right? Or the data that says that consumers are going to want these EVs and let's get them out there. And now those are the vehicles that happen to be being stockpiled on the dealers' lots because they miscalled it. What are some of the mistakes that businesses make when trying to adapt to changing consumer preferences, and how can they avoid them?
Yes, obviously you've got to make sure that the technology is properly distributed, that people are going to need in order to be able to use your EV type product.
Yeah.
But I think one of the other big issues is wanting to move towards a younger demographic, because let's face it, we all need renewed and fresh young customers. But you have to make sure that you don't lose your old ones, because your existing customers are usually your most lucrative customers. So when you do amend or adjust or kind of, extend ranges and so on for younger customers, you just have to make sure that you don't forget or ignore or treat badly your existing customers, as we've seen often with, I don't know, insurance, where you get great deals for new customers and terrible deals for old customers.
Right.
And also the older demographic, whilst they are declining in many respects, they still have lots of money to spend. So they are very important. So it's keeping the old whilst gaining the new.
Yeah, for sure. What piece of advice would you leave with our audience as we talk about this topic and this subject of trying to figure out where the market is going for many of these small business owners and entrepreneurs?
Well, I think, as I mentioned, kind of access a lot of those free services.
Okay.
Or paid services if you're pretty dedicated. Lots of subscriptions out there.
Sure.
Try to hire people that are the right demographic for your target audience, and try to hire people who are themselves highly innovative, creative, sponges who can get out there and learn all of this information. People who use the social media that your target audience wants to be on, and who have that eye to the future. And also, I would always suggest looking outside of your own sector and your direct competitors. Look at things which are just amazing, fantastic things that you saw when you went on holiday to Japan or some other country, or a great experience you had in a car showroom, but you're selling fashion. And then put those ideas together with something else that you've come up with, which is perhaps, more normal for a different industry, but totally new for your industry.
Sure.
So it's about mixing and matching from outside of your competitive set.
Sure. And this is something that small business owners and all-sized business owners actually should never stop doing. This isn't something you do once a year, right? Or once a month. This is something you should always be looking out for and aware of, correct? Because the data can change and the atmosphere and the market can change so quickly that if you did it once a quarter or once a year, you're already behind the eight ball, right?
I agree entirely. Yes, it's moving so fast now. And of course, AI is the fastest moving kind of element of that we've ever seen I've seen in 25 years. I would suggest that having some kind of skunk works, which is like a sort of little lab type, slightly separate element where you've given the people in that team or department, or perhaps just one person, you've given them freedom and space not to be directly productive with monthly targets for income, but you've given them space to look around and experiment and throw things at the wall, and perhaps engage in partnerships with startups, low cost and starting at the bottom often. But this is absolutely essential. All the best companies have these kinds of kind of innovation labs or kind of slightly separate skunk works, which have that freedom to fail, essentially, throw a load of stuff at the wall, see what works, and then progress with that.
Sure. It sounds like a great idea. It sounds like fun too.
Exactly.
Who doesn't want to throw things at the wall,
boring
right?
Stuff?
Yeah, that's fantastic. Kate Ancketill, so international keynote speaker, business futurist, CEO, and founder of GDR Creative Intelligence. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. We very much appreciate it.
Thanks
so
Jim.
much.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of The Small Business Show with Jim Fitzpatrick, exclusively